Despite USC's no visit policy after a recruit commits, the policy that caused a 5-star linebacker to decommit from the class, USC's still doing pretty well. It's hard to say they're not.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Holkin, and thanks for making Locked On USC part of the great Locked On Network, your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you want to download your podcast, pick the platform. The show's always free, and I am always going to appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. USC recruiting is still doing pretty damn well heading into the official visit season. On3 still has them with the number 1 class, and that was with their highest rated recruit decommitting. Go figure. How'd that happen? How can USC lose a 5-star linebacker and still have the number 1 overall class in the country? How's that happen? The reason why is because it's not because they have 27 commitments. That helps this much. The reason why, it's because of the way they're recruiting on the defensive side of the ball. It is outstanding. They have, again, one of the top classes in the country. You can pick whatever recruiting network you want to use. I'm going with On3. And USC still has more commitments on the way. Here's the primary reason why USC has the number 1 class. So On3 put out their top committed defensive lineman, top 10 list. And LSU has the number 1 defensive lineman. His name is Richard Anderson. USC has the number 2 guy named Jamion Winfield. Then there's Tony Cumberland, who's going to Oregon. You might have heard the name Tomahuni Tapui, Tom, number 4. Braden Jones, also a USC commit, number 5. And then the list rounds out with Jermaine Kinsler going to Texas A&M, Trayshawn Ruffin going to North Carolina, Gabe Hill going to Indiana, Kamarian Johnson, Alabama, and Cameron Cody, Clemson. So you've got 10 guys committed. USC owns 30% of that list. It's pretty damn good. USC also had 30% of the top defensive backs committed. This is why USC has the number 1 ranked class in the country, and official visits haven't even started yet. So again, you've got Jamion Winfield, the defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman from the state of Texas. He's the highest rated on the board for USC, right behind Richard Anderson, who also, by the way, Coach Henney, USC, they were right in there with it. Louisiana, LSU, they weren't going to let USC get 2 guys in a row. They lost out on Thanos, Keem Stewart. They weren't going to lose out on Richard Anderson. By the way, they went to the same school too, Edna Carr. So, yeah, you've got the number 2 guy in the country, and then you've got number 4 and 5, respectively, with Tom Tapui, Braden Jones. Yet everyone still wants to dwell on, the whole, well, USC lost Xavier Griffin. They couldn't let him take official visits. They were forcing his hand. You still have the number 1 class. And let me just remind everybody, the day that Talanoa Ely commits, and USC just has a couple more guys on that side of the ball, no one's going to care. As long as USC keeps doing what they're doing with their recruiting class, other than the people who need to find something to complain about, stuff that's really not as important as the USC Notre Dame rivalry game. Yeah, I'm not letting go of that bone. Anyways, USC's going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. The philosophy they're using is working. It's gotten them to the number 1 class in the country before official visit season. And once that starts, watch out. And I don't care if USC finishes with the number 1 class, number 2, 3. They're in the top 10, probably going to be close to the top 5 anyways. It's all subjective. There's nothing you want to complain about. And then you got to start over. It's all about developing these guys. You can put those stars next to their name. I've seen enough 5 stars come through USC and flame out like they shouldn't have been ranked to begin with. So again, enjoy the ride. It's fluid. You're going to suffer a decommitment. You're probably going to suffer another one down the line, maybe 2. But again, if it's, I made this comparison we were talking about when Cohen Brown decommitted. No one really cared. And it's not because it's a wide receiver position. It's because he wasn't rated, in that elite category. He wasn't that elite 4 or 5 star. That's what got everybody upset about the whole Xavier Griffin decommitment. And they want to blame it on, well, Chad Bowden is making guys, once they commit, shut it down. 27 guys have shut it down. And it's gotten USC to the number 1 recruiting class. Now, that doesn't mean that, everything is, gumdrops, rainbows, Candyland. I told you on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, I know I'm going to the other side of the ball now, but USC, Samuel Utu, offensive lineman, they're no longer engaged. And when I mean no longer engaged, they're not looking at each other. You know who else isn't looking at each other anymore? And I failed to mention this yesterday. Scott Schrader kind of confirmed it over there on WeRSC.com. Malachi Lee. Everyone thought that was a USC versus Michigan battle. Well, it's not. All of a sudden, Texas has the lead. Usually when Texas comes out of nowhere, it's because they're going to make a financial offer that nobody's going to be able to refuse. I don't know what's going to happen with Malachi Lee, but USC has 6 offensive linemen already committed to the class. It's not like they're hurting. So I don't know if they're done or not. They'll probably take at least 1 more offensive lineman. I'm not sure who it'll be. But it's not going to be Utu. It's not going to be Malachi Lee. And so what? Other than the optics of, oh, look, USC got one of those elite guys. USC's offensive line recruiting has been fantastic these last 3 years. Granted, Coach Josh Henson is now at Purdue. Zach Hansen picked up the mantle. And there hasn't been any drop-off. In fact, it might have improved a little bit. Pardon me. But USC's winning in the trenches, both sides of the ball. But USC's number 1 recruiting class has mostly everything to do with because of what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. Go figure. A Lincoln Riley-led team is getting their bona fides, collecting flowers because they're recruiting so well on the defensive side of the ball. Doesn't hurt. So yeah, USC recruiting still doing pretty well. And like I said, once the official visits, once that starts up, which is about 9 days away, it's going to be a little slow with recruiting news. I wouldn't anticipate any new commitments between now and when those official visits start. And even after they start, you're probably going to see them trickle in a little bit slower. But again, the guys that USC wants and the guys who, are considering USC, they all want to wrap up their recruitment before they put on for their high school season, for their senior season in high school. I told you what Van Spafford said, the wide receiver from Mission Viejo, before he dons that jersey for Mission Viejo's first game. He'll know where he's going. Right now, it's Georgia. He's taking that official visit to USC by himself. So I don't know. Maybe USC and Georgia make a trade. USC gets Van Spafford. Guess who's coaching over? You know who's coaching over there? Dante Williams, USC's former cornerbacks coach. Word has it, he's coming after Josh Holland over there at St. John Bosco. And if Joshua Holland's looking at USC's recruiting class, he's thinking, a lot of good talent in that class, a lot of depth. USC's already young on that side of the ball. I want Joshua Holland to be part of the class, but you never know. You never know how the mind of a 16 or 17 year old is going to work on that day. What they're thinking one day can be the complete opposite 24 hours later. And when Dante Williams is putting on his recruiting shoes, doing that tap dance, it's hard to say no to that guy. He was one of the reasons why USC wanted him on their staff. The issue, it's not so much an issue, but there's a big difference between development and recruiting. USC can recruit. They need guys who can develop. So Danton Lynn, Trovon Reed, USC's coaching staff has improved ever since Lynn took over. All right, a couple more segments to go. I told you I wasn't letting go of that bone, but we're going to talk about that USC Notre Dame rivalry in segment 2 and why it's, according to some fans, it's not fair to USC. And then in the third segment, stick around. Another top 25 list. And this one, I got issues with it. I got big issues with it. The Athletic, they put out their top 25 college football players since 2000. There's quite a few names missing from that list, and one you would not expect. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, full effect. Every night delivers highlights. It delivers major momentum shifts, and you got those can't miss moments. FanDuel, it's going to make it easy for you to stay in the game before tip-off as well as live during the game with player prop bets, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have even more ways now to win big. I mean, more ways than ever. If you've got a read on who's heating up, you know what? Why not back it up with a same-game parlay? So if you're watching those trends and you see some guy, that guy's going to score 30 tonight, go make a bet. And you can do it during the game. In fact, how would $200 in bonus bets sound if your first $5 bet wins? Well, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Place that first $5 bet. That's it. If you win, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. It's that simple. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Quote, Mark, is it fair that USC has to play Michigan and Notre Dame in back-to-back weeks? End quote. Here's my answer. Number 1, life isn't fair. Number 2, who freaking cares? And number 3, what's to say if the USC Notre Dame rivalry game gets moved to the beginning of the season? Game 1 or 2. Who's to say that USC won't get Purdue the following week? Or pick, a conference bottom feeder. Cherry picking 2025 because USC plays Michigan at home in LA and then has to fly out to South Bend the following week. Oh, well. Like I said, what if that game was against Purdue? Would that change your opinion? The question, is it fair? There's a lot of USC fans out there right now that think that every single week they're going to be playing Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, all the top teams, whoever those guys are. Back to back to back to back to back. It's not going to happen. You're never going to see USC playing Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State in the same season. Never. Oh, let's throw Oregon into the mix. It's not going to happen. So stop creating these extreme scenarios. In the Pac-12, how many times did USC play an out-of-conference game to open the season? And then guess who they were playing in week 2 or 3? Stanford. So, I mean, I don't care if they move the game, the USC Notre Dame game, from October to the beginning of the season on the years that they play in LA. But don't give me that, well, how come they have to play Michigan and then Notre Dame? What happens if USC has to open the season with a big conference game? Here's the bottom line to this. I keep bringing it up because I think people seem to forget this part of the calculus. If the big conference is going to get 4 automatic bids in the future, we're talking about playoff bids, then who cares about the out-of-conference games? When I say who cares, I mean how difficult they are. It doesn't matter. All USC has to do is be one of the top 3 teams every year in the big conference. And in the down, if they're having a down year, win the play-in game. You just have to be one of the top 4 teams in the conference, and you're going to the playoffs. And if you play Notre Dame week 7, win or lose, it has 0 effect on your playoffs. 0, none, nada, zilch. I'm getting so sick and tired of the argument that USC doesn't need to play Notre Dame and Notre Dame needs USC. BS. Well, Notre Dame just needs to join the Big Ten Conference and the problem's solved. No, it actually creates a bigger problem. Notre Dame joining the Big Ten Conference hurts the USC Notre Dame rivalry because now you have another team pressing for that, one of those top 4 seedings. So I'm asking, why is it necessary all of a sudden, especially with the upcoming playoff format and, the top of the conference program scheduling up with their out-of-conference schedules, not down, why is it so important that Notre Dame has to join a conference? I've pointed out their future schedules. It's not chump change. It's not chopped liver. In fact, compare their 2025 schedule to USC's. Some might say Notre Dame has a tougher schedule. Because whenever I ask that question, no one can give me an answer. Again, if USC goes 9-0 in the big conference but loses all 3 out-of-conference games, guess what? Undefeated in the big, guess who's going to the playoffs? See these letters right here? Yeah, SC. As long as Notre Dame isn't in a conference, the best they can do is a 5 seed. That's it, at least for the moment. That's the way it's set up. And I don't know how that changes when they go to the 16-team format, when the Big Ten Conference and the SEC get their 4 auto bids. So USC playing Notre Dame, and if this happens, an SEC team, because they're talking about those 2 conferences playing, matching up on an annual basis. So what? More money, bigger TV audiences. You're keeping college football tradition alive. People want to see these games. Does everybody know? How many of you know why Notre Dame went independent and stayed that way? Let me tell you why. Because Michigan, I think there was a couple other Big Ten schools as well. They blackballed them way back when Methuselah was a toddler. When Hector was a pup. I'm using a lot of Chikern phrases right now. Let me remind everybody. Michigan refused to play Notre Dame from 1910 through 1942, and then from 1944 through 1977. And during that time, they were actively trying to keep Notre Dame out of the Big Ten Conference. Why? Because they didn't want to be challenged. Because of that, ironically, that's how USC and Notre Dame introduced themselves to each other. That's how the rivalry was created. The Big Ten didn't want to play Notre Dame, So Notre Dame said, fine, let's get out to the West Coast. Let's start up something out there. 100 years later, look at what it's done to college football. 16 national championships. Actually, more than that. That's just since 1936. 15 Heisman Trophy winners. Earlier today, as I'm recording this episode of Locked on USC, part of the Locked on Network, I did the Big Ten squad show, that panel show. And guess who wants the rivalry to continue? All right? Everyone. I was shocked. I was surprised. Oregon fan, Washington fan, Indiana fan, Penn State, UCLA, Ohio State, all of them want to see this tradition never come to an end. I was kind of surprised, especially since there seems to be such a vocal group of USC fans who could not care any less. I want to take you back to last year, 2024, Big Ten Media Days again. When asked at that event whether games like USC versus LSU will become more rare in future seasons, Lincoln O'Reilly, he actually answered, said, yeah. I think if the playoffs stay the way it is right now, then I think you'll see less and less of them, especially with us and the SEC, because our schedules are going to be so good. At some point, you're like, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? In terms of playing these games, there's always a desire to play in a spotlight game for the players and coaches, but they have to be worthwhile in the pursuit of a national championship, or what's the point? As competitors, we all want to play these games, end quote. Here's the important part, okay? And why canceling the series makes absolutely no sense. And I'm going to use Coach Riley's own words to support my argument on why the rivalry should continue. Listen carefully. This was Coach Riley. He continued on with that answer. Now, quote, now, if and when the playoffs shift again, if you start talking about, let's say, even more guaranteed spots for some of these conferences, all of that, then I think it could lend itself to these games being back, which will be good for the game, because games like this are awesome, end quote. So my question would be, as far as the Ole Miss series, well, Coach Riley said, that was kind of in the works for a while. But I mean, you got a responsibility to what you think is going to put you in the best position to do it. I mean, we have as good an argument as anyone in college football, because we have a yearly game against a good opponent in Notre Dame along with this schedule. End quote. Those are Coach Riley's words last year. I mean, he made the argument to keep the Notre Dame rivalry if the playoffs shift. If they create, if you give us more automatic bids, yeah, there's no reason not to play these games. If that's the case, USC, Coach Riley, keep this damn game, because the conference is getting 4 automatic spots reserved. Like you said, you already played Notre Dame annually. No reason to drop it. Look, I don't have a whole lot longer on this planet. I really don't. All I want are the simple things in life. I just want, you know what brings me happiness? Tradition. USC versus Notre Dame. College football in general. There's no reason to keep stripping it away, keep stripping tradition away. When you cancel USC versus Notre Dame, you are essentially canceling the last bit of tradition. Everybody's going to have their conference rivals: Auburn, Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon. Nobody else has USC, Notre Dame. Nothing compares. You got 4 automatic spots available to you in the playoffs. If you can't earn one of those in conference, you don't deserve to be considered as a national champion or compete for one. Play Notre Dame. every single year. So The Athletic revealed its top 25 college football players since 2000. And apparently now that we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century, they decided it was time to put out their top 25 list. And I was shocked when I saw this list and some of the players that weren't on it. And yes, the ones I'm focused on are going to be USC players. But let me rifle through this quickly. Their number one college football player since 2000, Cam Newton. Newton was ranked the top player of the last quarter century per The Athletic. His lone season at Auburn will be remembered for him being Superman and leading the Tigers to a national title. That season, 2010 to be exact, Newton threw for 30 touchdowns, 7 picks, 2,800 yards, and ran for another 1,400 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns. Sometimes he single-handedly put Auburn on his back and led the team to being the number one pick overall by the Carolina Panthers. Number 2, Reggie Bush. Perhaps the biggest college football star of the last 25 years is the second best player on the list. Kids would imitate his running style because you couldn't tackle him based on his elusiveness. Bush won a Heisman Trophy, was a national champion. What else did he do? Oh, he was a human highlight reel. 3,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, 1,300 receiving yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 touchdown returns, 4 touchdowns on punt returns. Yeah, all that. So let me ask you this question. You're the general manager. Who you picking with your first pick? Cam Newton, Reggie Bush. I mean, Cam Newton won games by himself. Reggie Bush didn't do that. USC had a 34-game winning streak with Reggie Bush. Did Auburn? Here's number 3. Ndamukong Suh, Nebraska. Okay, he's a pretty good player. Is he better than Leonard Big Cat Williams? Number 4 was Joe Burrow. Number 5, Lamar Jackson, quarterback Louisville. Number 6, Ed Reed, safety, Miami. By the way, as far as I'm concerned, he should be a little bit higher up on this list. Definitely above Lamar Jackson. Number 7, Vince Young. Number 8, Tim Tebow. Number 9, Travis Hunter. Number 10, Terrell Suggs, Arizona State. 11, Larry Fitzgerald. 12, Andrew Luck. 13, Devontae Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. 14, Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma, Texas Tech. 15, Marcus Mariota, Oregon. Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State, was number 16. Christian McCaffrey, number 17. Roy Williams, safety, Oklahoma, 18. Julius Peppers, 19, defensive end, North Carolina. 20, Aaron Donald, Pittsburgh. 21, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, LSU, Arizona State. 23, Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia. 24, Tyrann Mathieu, LSU. Number 25, Quentin Nelson, Notre Dame. Take a deep breath. How in the hell did Matt Leinart not make the list? How in the hell did BMW not make the list? I mean, seriously. Marquise Lee won the Biletnikoff Award at USC, right? Where's Clay Matthews? Where's Ray Mayaluga? Taylor Mays? This list is it's challenging the other list for the dumbest list ever. And I'm talking about the stadium list that I gave you the other day. This one, yeah. Oof. How can you not have Matt Leinart on that list? Mike Williams, wide receiver, couldn't stop him. This list is just bizarre. You got Vince Young, Tim Tebow, no Matt Leinart. Really? Sometimes I want to meet the people who put together this list because I think sometimes they're just doing this and playing pin the tail on a donkey. Wherever it lands, that's what they're putting in there. I'm telling you, one of these days I'm going to put together a list and I'm going to piss off the rest of the country. eventually, soon, one day. We're getting into the dog days of summer. That's when I'll probably do it. Right. I'll be back with another episode of Locked on USC tomorrow. By the way, we're going to be talking recruiting with Brian Smith from the portal. And probably have my Friday rant in there as well. What do you think I'm going to talk about? All right. Until that next episode of Locked on USC, everyone, you know what to do.